Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for tuning in. Today's topic is a very interesting one. The question here is that is journalism a dying profession in Ghana? That's today's topic. And we are blessed to have two special personalities in our midst. But before that, before I introduce them, let me just give an incitation. This week, Ghana has dropped 30 points in the World Press Freedom Index from 30th to 60th position in the latest ranking by Reporters Without Borders. Now, Reporters Without Borders is an international non-profit and non-governmental organization with the declared aim of safeguarding the right of freedom of information and expression by journalists across the world. It does its rating annually based on prevailing conditions and journalists face in the line of work globally. Regrettably, most African countries, including Ghana, have performed poorly in this year's ranking. And this has indeed generated a lot of controversies around the continent and even in many Pan African societies around the world. So we are asking, how safe is the African journalist? Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have a senior program officer in charge of press freedom at the Media Foundation for West Africa in the person of Wahid Sahid. We also have a seasoned journalist, Elvis Washington, who has been practicing as a journalist in Ghana for the past 15 years to help us understand the actual threat journalists in Ghana currently face. Gentlemen, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Wow, I can hear you loud and clear. I'm so excited.
As
Oh, um, I am. What's going to happen is that your signal is breaking. I can see that your signal is very low here. So I'm going to shift to Washington, and then I'm going to call you on a cell phone so that you can make your case clear. Can we agree on that? Because
okay.
yeah, because your signal is fluctuating. So what I'll do is that just be on the line. I will be asking Mr. Washington his next question, and then I'll find a way to get you on a cell phone so that it will be clear, so that will be safe to everybody. You understand? Okay, Mr. Washington. We've had Mr. Sahid's submission that certain radio stations has been closed down, and then security forces were used to nab certain people, etc., etc. My question: you are a journalist. You are already in the field. Tell us your practical experience. How difficult is it for a Ghanaian journalist to speak up?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Muzat.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening to
Good evening.
our viewers and listeners across the world.
Mm.
It's a privilege to be on the show once again.
Yeah, we missed you.
Yeah, great. Indeed, I'm grateful we are discussing such a wonderful topic such as journalism, the practice of journalism in a country that is supposed to be the beacon of hope in Africa.
Mm.
Unfortunately, gradually we are losing this status due to poor media management,
Okay.
poor level of tolerance, and then bringing back the days of dictatorship, the days where journalists or journalism was seen as a crime practicing in this country.
Okay.
To your question, which has to do with whether it's difficult practicing this profession in Ghana these days, I would say, as a practicing journalist of over 15 years record, I would say to some extent, yes, it's a bit difficult practicing
All circuits are busy now.
in Ghana
Please try your call again.
because you look over your shoulders to see who is watching you, who is following you, who is tracking you, because you don't know what next you're going to write about, you're going to say that is going to land you in trouble, that is going to put you under threat, your life under threat. By and large, due to past precedents where our colleagues have been haunted, I would say that these days it makes it very difficult coming out genuinely to critique issues and to critique happenings and events, because people misconstrue it. Politics have creeped into every bit of our profession,
Okay.
and gradually we are losing sight of this very noble profession that seek to hold government accountable, that seek to put government on its toes, that seek to ensure that the ordinary citizenry are respected, the rights of the ordinary citizenry, the
Yeah.
vote of the ordinary citizenry are protected.
Yeah. Journalism is a global profession, and in all over the world there are journalists reporting what is happening. For example, even in Ukraine, they go down there to risk their life so that some of us can know exactly what is going on. Anyway, there are a lot of journalists in Ghana, some radio stations, I don't want to call their name, who are performing and doing very well. And then, if I may ask that, it looks like they are not being persecuted. And if I should ask, why is it so? Because right now we are talking for all journalists, and it looks like some few journalists are being targeted. How come that some are doing fine and they are receiving their ratings? Mr. Elvis, if you can just throw a little light on that.
Okay, so personally, from my experience and as a practicing journalist in Ghana,
Right.
I don't see the fight against journalism or the hunting of journalists in Ghana as being selective. I have to do with it's a general phenomenon. Today, you may think you are in the good books of somebody. The next moment, before you realize,
Yeah.
you are at loggerheads. You are fighting the same person who said he was going to protect you. Mind you, sometime in 2014,
Right.
Manasseh Azuri Awuni did a story, The Ford Gate.
Okay.
Manasseh, at the time, he self-admitted, subsequent interview recently, that he's even. Can I go ahead?
Yes. Let me just speak to Swahid. I'm trying to call you on a cell phone. Can you hear me loud and clear? Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. So I would like to take you off the system in the studio so that I can deal with you on the cell phone. That's fine, right? So that we will not have this feedback.
Okay.
So I'm just taking you off the system, and then
Okay.
let's just do it on the cell phone. Okay. Can you hear me now, Saeed?
Okay.
Because the next question is going to be yours. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay, so just be on it. Elvis, it looks
Yes.
like Elvis is okay. Elvis, so I'm listening to you. Yeah, we're talking about somebody who was doing investigative journalism, and then he was being napped down. I want you to proceed on that, and then
So I'm answering your question, which has to do with journalists, some group of journalists being persecuted and others having a field day doing their work.
right.
Well, and I was trying to link you to a story that Manasseh Azuri Awuni did over the Ford Gate story that has to do with former President John Dramani Mahama.
Right.
And yes, and according to Manasseh, at the time, Manasseh Azuri Awuni, in his own admission, mentioned that the Ghanaian, the ordinary taxpayers' taxes are being mismanaged, and a lot of malfeasance were going on, a lot of bribery and corruption issues under the former administration. Yet, he himself recently mentioned that, and he was part of those clamoring for change in government, where we were all, hoping that a change in government will bring us some form of sanity, some form of value for money in terms of what taxes Ghanaians pay. However, it turned out to be different. And Manasseh quite recently mentioned that he felt so safe under the former administration of John Dramani Mahama than that of Nana Akufo-Addo today. He feared for his life today than under John Dramani Mahama's government, where he had to publish, sensitive documents about the president in sitting. Why did Manasseh say this? Why is he saying this? Now that our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who happens to be part of the legal team, the people that fought for the freedom of the press, who is a human rights lawyer, why is it that under his administration or jurisdiction, journalists will feel unsafe? Why will Ghana drop 30th position? I mean, why will Ghana drop so much under his administration? It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Indeed, politics has actually creeped into this profession such that the up-and-coming ones believe that I must align myself with a particular political party to be able to have my way out. If I'm not with the NDC, then I must be with the MPP. Gone are the days where we all practice as a journalist in journalism school. We're thought to be neutral, to remain neutral, to be at the center line, regardless of our affiliates. We must make sure we hold in high esteem professional standards of this profession. But today, media ownership has come to destroy some of these things.
Right.
And politics.
Yeah. It's so sad. We will dwell further into that. But let me give it's so sad that politics has crept into the profession now, and there's like people having to take certain sides that even the right information is not being preached out there. But Mr. Said, can you hear me? Can you hear me loud and clear? Because you are on the phone. Said. Mr.
Yes,
Said.
I can hear you.
Yes. Okay, listening to what Elvis said, and in fact, what is happening on the ground, he's reporting what is happening on the ground. Is this not a big contrast looking at the current president of Ghana, who has been touted as a lover of free speech? And then under his administration, people are being napped. And what do you say about that?
Well, I think that the president must be greatly embarrassed that we have had our worst press freedom record under the Fourth Republic during his administration.
Yeah.
Given the reputation that he has as a human rights lawyer and someone who believes in the rule of law, it was during his time as Attorney General that Ghana decriminalized libel under President Kufuor. And so if Ghanaians made some allowance for any faults or deficiency in the governance that we're going to get from Nana Addo, media freedom or attacks on the media was never part of what Ghanaians expected to go wrong under a government headed by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. But perhaps Nana Addo underestimated the critical nature of the Ghanaian media. Perhaps he felt that it would be business as usual in opposition. Much of the media also tend to be more critical of the government and more cozy with the opposition. And so perhaps he felt that the same level of cooperation, the way most of the time he as an opposition leader and the media found themselves on one side, fighting a government that was perceived to be corrupt and not doing well. He felt that in governance, it was going to be the same. But when the media turned its lenses against the government to demand accountability, especially during first term from 2017 to 2020, when his biggest achievement was supposed to be the free senior high school education,
Yes.
which also had come with a lot of problems. And therefore, there was some amount of, I would say, the government felt a little jittery going into the election.
Said, I can hear you. Said. It looks like Said has gone down. Elvis,
Yes,
let me
sir.
let me throw the next question to you, and then it's all about how you guys have been treated in the operation. Is it the journalists that have been nabbed, or the media house that is being nabbed, or is both journalists and the media house that is being nabbed?
All right. So thank you so much. So, well, had it not been the closure of some radio stations and the clampdown of some radio stations on some frivolous, issues, I would have said probably it was the journalists that is being nabbed, or journalists that were being nabbed. But sincerely speaking, from what we are witnessing in this country, it looks like media practitioners, bloggers are even being sorted after. If you publish something and it does not go well with the powers that be, they're ready to be picked up. And this has really brought about what we term as self-censorship by journalists. You understand?
Yeah.
So as a journalist today, if I'm doing a story, you hear my people, they will ask me, Charlie, watch your shoulders, be careful. If you're not careful, they'll come and pick you. Once you start doing the story, they tell you, hey, you'll be picked very soon, by tomorrow. If you're even thinking of how to, frame your story, what the first thing that comes into mind is how you're going to frame the story in order not to attract any arrest from any powers that be. You understand? You ask yourself, do you know the repercussion of this story you're going to publish? Is someone coming after you? Don't do this story. Be careful, you'll be picked up. And this is this is one thing that restrains us from practicing freely. And we have that right. It is our right. It is within our rights as journalists to provide education, information, and entertainment to our people. So if I have to do my job and I have to go through all this self-censorship in order to please somebody's whims and caprices, that's unfortunate.
Let me just give a counter here. We have seasoned journalists, experienced journalists, veterans journalists like Kwesi Pratt and co. Nobody naps them. I always hear Kwesi Pratt as he speaks his mind. He speaks against the government, but nobody there naps him. But when the young and coming ups comes over, the young and coming up journalists, they try to speak, they are being napped. Why? Is it because some journalists are untouchable? I don't know whether this is what I'm observing, or I don't know whether if you have seen this.
Well, I will not go into that. It's a very slippery slope, I must say. But what I would want to say is that these people you mentioned are people who grew up with the president. They fought several battles with him. And mind you, I remember the famous Kufuor Hotel story where under the former President Kufuor's era, Kwesi Pratt was barred from taking pictures of that hotel. However, he made his point very clear that he was going there to take pictures. And indeed, he went to take the pictures. It was nothing untoward happened to him. Had it been someone, an ordinary journalist like my very good self, probably by this time, I would have been shot dead. So these are people who've made a name. They are part of the freedom fighters who had to help to gain the freedom for which we have today. So these are people, they are untouchable. Yes, of course, they are untouchable. However, to say, you know, we have greats in everything. I believe that we are the up and coming ones.
Yeah.
If our feathers are plucked right
Hello.
early enough,
Hello.
it's unfortunate for us to fly.
I
We
think
may not
Said.
fly to the level we have to fly.
Yeah. Thank you so much. But I think I'll throw the same question to Said. Said, Said, can you hear me? You are on the phone line. So, Said, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. I asked Washington.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I asked Washington a definite question. We say there's no press freedom in Ghana. Certain people cannot even put their stories out there. But we still have some veteran journalists who speak against the government. I know Kusi Pratt is a very seasoned journalist. I respect him so much. I know how much he has fought for this country. He speaks his mind and nobody touches him. But when other one speaks their mind, they are grabbed. Is there any explanation to this?
Well, I think it's not just a matter of speaking your mind. It's about how hurting what you say is to the government or any person, any important person in government. Apart from that, Kwesi Pratt is a seasoned journalist,
right?
And going after him, you risk a very serious backlash. So sometimes there is also that discretion to be sure that the person that we are going after is from a certain background where the backlash will be too great against us.
Right.
But having said that, it's really about what the journalist has written and how it affects an important person, or how it is perceived to affect the electoral fortunes of the government. And let me add that we have some very dreadful journalism also going on. And so the Media Foundation for West Africa, for example, from June 2000 and May 2001, we did monitoring of the media landscape, 10 account-speaking radio stations, 10 newspapers, and 6 news websites. And we recorded, over that 1 year, we recorded more than 1,400 ethical infractions, bordering on sensationalism, mixing of opinion with facts, lack of good taste and public sensitivity, as well as stereotyping. And so we admit that there have been very dreadful journalism going on. But most of that, about 50% of that, was recorded on radio stations that are politically affiliated. And if you look at the radio journalists who have been abused, none of them have come from stations that are known to be pro MPP, which is the second government. So there is a certain amount of discrimination also as far as the attacks against media organizations is concerned. Even the closure of radio stations was also done in a way that disproportionately targeted stations that were perceived to be pro-opposition. We saw
Yeah.
And the licenses are for 5 years. They are renewable every 5 years. And yet they were not affected by that exercise. So there is a certain amount of discrimination as far as the attacks are concerned.
So it's all about
We've also seen
it's all about politics.
Yeah.
It's all about politics. Yeah.
Yes. And we've seen some journalists metamorphosed into public officers under the current administration. These were very high-hitting journalists.
Right.
And now they have various positions within state enterprises and as board members of various state institutions. So that, from their own point of view, gives them the impression that some of the journalists that are very critical of them are also trying to court some kind of sympathy from the opposition party.
Okay.
And those kind of favors in case the opposition party comes to power. And that is also the reason they are not so tolerant of very critical journalism from some of these journalists that they don't know for sure belong to their camp.
Okay. Mr. Sides, thank you so much. I want to put a scenario ahead. Mr. Washington, can you hear me loud and clear? You're still there, right? Yeah. There was it about 2 years ago, there was this famous journalist from CNN who reports in the White House for CNN. And he's known for asking very tough questions. And some of those questions ends up embarrassing the president. He's on CNN. I don't have his name here. Maybe next time, our next show, I will put his name across. And to the extent that his credentials had to be recalled. The White House had to recall his what gives him the right to enter the White House. The case was taken to court within 1 week, and the White House no other choice but to restore the gentleman back. And he came back to the White House, and he was still asking those questions just to embarrass the president. Has the court failed us in Ghana? Mr. Washington, can we depend on the courts?
Failed us in which context?
I mean, can we depend on the courts if you are nabbed by the first branch because you said something that they don't like, which is the truth? Can a court come in to save you? Because in the US here, this guy, his credential was recalled and was like, within 3 days, the court came in and they had to reinstate him back in the White House.
The question I will ask, I will throw back your answer with a question.
Yeah.
How independent is our courts, or are our courts? How independent is the court system in Ghana? Because a president takes over, he empanels, he appoints judges, he empanels a new set of jury at the Supreme Court, appoints, set of judges and all that. So how independent are our courts to be able to bite, the bullet? We've had top cases that everything that have had to come out is unanimous decision. Yeah. We've had cases that we believe that these cases, at least, there should be a different view to whatever judgment or ruling. However, we keep getting unanimous decision. I would not say the judges do not know what the decision or do not know what they do, but I will say the only question I will use in answering your question is that how independent are our court system? If the court system is that independent to even look into the president's face and tell the president that, hey, or stand to their feet, then of course we may get somewhere. But if it is not independent as we think they should be, then certainly you don't cockroach would never the cockroach would never win any case in the court of the head.
Right.
You go there and you'll be thrown back.
Right. Mr. Said, are you still there? Because you are on the phone.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
Let me just
okay.
Example. Let me give you this typical example.
Sure.
Quite recently, there was this gentleman who went to the court to hear a case out, and unfortunately, he was recording, which is against the ethics of court reporting. He was arrested, handed over, kept in custody, and unfortunately, just when he was released to let go by the court, another powerful arm of government picked him up. And this is a gentleman that has been released, and another arm of government just picked this gentleman up. So you ask yourself, who is above who? And who is taking others from where? And to what extent does our judges have the power to bite?
All right. Are we going to conclude this, Mr. Said? This one is to you. Let me ask you this question: are we going to say that this whole thing is going to be a recycle thing? We can never solve it because the next administration that comes will have their own set of journalists, and if this administration's journalists speak against them, they will also nap. Is that going to be the cycle that we are going to be experiencing in Ghana as long as we've decided to run on this democratic path? Mr. Said, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you too.
Hello?
Yellow? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't expect the deterioration of the press freedom environment to continue up to the next election. We have made so much noise about the fall in Ghana's rating.
Mm-hmm.
Government itself has issued a statement. It contained a lot of rhetoric, but from the posture of government, you can see that privately it feels embarrassed. And to the extent that the government is embarrassed, it would seek ways to reverse the trend in order to buy back its reputation within the press freedom fraternity. And so I expect that going forward, they would show a little more tolerance to critical journalism. I expect that the government would have very frank discussion with the head of the security agency over their wanton attack on journalists in the line of duty, and generally see them refer cases to the National Media Commission for settlement rather than the hostile and militant approach that has brought Ghana to this level.
Right.
So I want to give the government the benefit of the doubt and believe that it will work to reverse the situation so that even there is a change in government, we'll rather build on that momentum.
Right. Okay. I'll throw this question. I think last but not the least question to Mr. Elvis. Mr. Elvis, can we also come to this understanding that we also do have some irresponsible journalists on our midst who would just go out there and then publish something which is not true? Do we have people like that in the profession?
Most definitely. I mean, there are a lot of them. But what do you expect when you open the floodgate for political apparatchiks, political people who have no media idea to start media business. They bring up people because people who can make loud noise, people who can just talk because they have loud mouth to just speak. They come out to just spew things without knowing the ethics in journalism. They have no formal training. They have no training whatsoever.
But
They believe that
how did they get into the profession if they don't have they don't know the ethics? They don't even know the ethics, and then to practice the. How did they even get into the profession?
unfortunately, unlike the medical, fraternity, where before you practice as a doctor, you must have a certain license before you practice. Journalism is not so. So this brings to fore the discussion about coming up with a licensing regime where journalists must be licensed to practice, to be at least to see the chaff out of the system. I mean, you have media houses, political, media ownership, basically political owners, political party apparatchiks who, because they have money, they are party financiers, they can they have the money to establish a radio station or TV station or newspaper or online portal. They do it. And they get their own people, their very own people who are so fixated on party issues without looking at the challenges they bring to the system, to the masses. No, all they know about is this person is my party person. He can speak, he's loud mouth. At least their local language, he's very good, he can articulate it. Let us put him on there. And so, of course, this and many more has actually encouraged these charlatans to find their way into this very profession, knowing that we do not have any there's nothing to kick them out of the system, because once you have been employed as as a media morning show host or a journalist, even you are employed now. People who even go on shows and talk, pundits are now calling themselves journalists. Yes, pundits are even calling themselves journalists. You have people, DJs calling themselves journalists. I mean, who is a journalist? I think it's about time we bring that discussion so that we can take this profession serious. And I mean, until we do that, look,
statistically, this is my last question, but I'll throw it to both of you. I'm not cutting you off, but this is my last question, but it's the same question. I'll throw it to both. I'm going to reframe it. Statistically, where do we see that problem? Is it the normal journalists that come to speak English, like maybe GBC, Joy FM, or City FM, or the local ones that just came up? I mean, statistically, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to downplay the local radio stations, etc. But where are we finding some of those problems? Is it from the local side or the standard one that we know? Let me give this one to Mr. Said, and then Mr. Joe Washington, you conclude with the same question. Mr. Said, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Said, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can. The last question, you understand?
I can hear you.
Yes. What was it? Tell me.
Can you repeat it?
Okay. I just want to, we are having some problem in journalism, and I want to ask, statistically, where are we finding the problem? Is it the standard English language speaking journalist companies, or the local based local based radio stations that are creating the problem? I wanted to speak from statistics, but if there's no statistics on that, we don't have to presume anything. But from your own, where is the problem coming from? Where can we identify the problems germinating from?
I mentioned that we carried out some monitoring.
Right.
And the monitoring showed that most of the ethical breaches were recorded on radio stations that are owned by politicians or are politically inclined.
Okay.
So if we're talking about lack of professionalism, much of the problem comes from the radio stations that are politically inclined. And according to RSS data, they constitute 30% of the media in Ghana. Yet, in terms of the attack on journalists and press freedom, it is not quite a matter of the radio stations that are politically inclined.
Okay.
In this particular case, we had just about a couple of cases that involved such radio stations. I mean, in terms of journalists who were harassed for their work.
Okay.
But the majority of journalists who were attacked are not from that kind of, are not working for that kind of media organization.
Okay.
So if we're talking about Ghana's press freedom,
right,
and linking it to the type of media or the level of professionalism,
okay,
then I think that it goes beyond these media houses.
Okay.
It's a problem, first of all, of a government that has proven itself particularly intolerant. And secondly, it is also one of media landscape that is not really well regulated,
right,
especially the online media.
right.
So perhaps we need to look at strengthening the regulatory framework,
right,
and ultimately we will need a government that is committed to promoting free, independent journalism for us to be able to turn the corner.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Elvis, I will throw the same question to you. I mean, he raised a very important issue, the online radio stations like what we are doing. Mr. Elvis, you know the question, the same thing.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I think Mr. Said actually works with statistics, so basically, yes, he has been able to articulate the issue very well. But as a journalist who worked with one of the most reputable TV and radio stations in the country for years, I believe that, sincerely speaking, most of us are brothers from, yes, the politically inclined radios and TV stations, and the local, because most of the infractions comes from there, because they add, they tend to believe that sensationalism sells their stories the more, so they try to embellish the story by trying to over presenting the facts, and sometimes under presenting the facts also, just to win the hearts of the listeners, which is quite unfortunate. And these are all the issues that brings about the issue that has to do with unprofessionalism. Because these people, if they were to be professionals, those working there, professionals, they would have known what to do. And the dangerous thing here, once upon a time, professional journalists, even with these local media houses, these local language speaking media houses, started going the same lane of trying to talk sensationalism, because their media owners believe that they are business people. They believe that, look, throw
some punches.
Professionalism. Throw away your professionalism. I need the numbers on social media. I need the numbers out there. So put away that your professionalism and then go with the flow. What is the flow? The flow is adding sensationalism, moving according to what others are doing, just for us to get the numbers, and the numbers put the money on the table, and the numbers gets us to pay you. So it got to a point, I feel money raise serious issues. I feel money, the president of the Ghana Journalists Association, raised serious issues that, look, if you are not careful, a time will come we'll lose our professionalism, and that will be the end of us. Professional journalists, for the mere fact that they are working with these local media houses, have thrown to dogs their professionalism, and this brings to media ownership. So if it's high time, I think, I don't know if Mr. Said will buy in what I'm saying, or will side with me. It's high time we relook at media ownership. People who own media houses in this country,
Right.
they must possess some level of, understanding of the media, and there must be a handbook from
Right.
the media commission, for instance. Yes, to these media owners, regardless of your political party or regardless of your money or your business affiliate, you must be able to go strictly. And it's high time the media commission is giving the teeth to bite.
Right. Right.
And it's high time the media commission is giving the teeth to bite independently.
Right.
And this thing about politics and taking side must stop. Until
Right.
then, we'll be moving in circles as a country and we'll not get nowhere.
Right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, Mr. Said and then Mr. Washington. Viewers, we were privileged to have a senior programmer officer for in charge of press freedom at the Media Foundation for West Africa, and his name is Mr. Mohid Said. And we also had a seasoned journalist, Elvis Washington, who has been practicing for the past 15 years. And then I also want to say that our viewers love you, and then we thank you so much for spending some time with us. Just like and share this program. I'm recording this time live from Pennsylvania, United States of America, and please always stay true to political affairs when we come to speak the truth about the country. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And Mr. Elvis, I'll be calling you after the show. We'll talk behind the curtain. And then, Mr. Said, thank you so much. I know you have another program ahead. I want to let you go quickly and then go do the nation's job. God bless you, sir. And I'll see you again, sir. I'll call you behind the curtain.
All right.